Welcome back to Around the Waves on KCOU 88.1 FM Columbia, the student voice of your Missouri Tigers. I'm your host, Luca Vitale. I can't even say my name today. Can't speak today. All right, back with Ryan Waelterman and Ben Schmidt. Let's get to the NFL as the season is underway tonight when the Bills take on the Rams at SoFi. It is a new NFL season, which means anything could happen on any given Sunday or Thursday or Monday, depending on what day game happens. We will see some prizes this season. Hence, we didn't think the Cincinnati Bengals would get to the Super Bowl last season, and we didn't expect the Cleveland Browns to be that disappointing last season. At least I didn't. But Ben, let's start with you here. Which non-NFL playoff team from last season has the best chance of making the playoffs this season?
There's 3 to 4 teams I think could all be in this question, especially the AFC. The AFC's loaded, but I feel really good about the Indianapolis Colts this season, especially in a weak division. The Jaguars will certainly take a step forward. The Texans, probably not as big of a step, but will maybe improve by a win or two. And the Titans, I think, will have a regression from that number one seed that they were a year ago to second place in the division. Because when you lose your number one pass rusher and to injury, torn ACL happened just last week, and then your number one pass catcher and A.J. Brown via trade. And I know they brought in Bob Woods along with during the draft. They drafted Treylon Burks. So you add some weapons there. But still, I don't think either of those players are as good as A.J. Brown when healthy. So when those couple of things happen, and you add in the fact that the Colts got better, it was already a close division race. Not necessarily a close division race, but the Colts made it interesting there for about 3/4 of the season. I think now the Colts take that next step in order to take the AFC South, win the division for the first time since Luck was captain that ship in around 2013. I think it was 2014, actually, the year they lost to New England in the Deflategate AFC Championship. So you look at some of the Colts additions, obviously the upgraded quarterback at Matt Ryan, and I don't think Matt Ryan is anywhere near the Matt Ryan of 4 or 5 years ago, but it's a steady quarterback, and it's a guy that I trust, and I know the first thing you think about Matt Ryan is how can you trust Matt Ryan? He had one of the biggest Super Bowl collapses in NFL history, but when you look at who was there before, when you have a fourth quarter game on the line, would you rather have Matt Ryan you lead you down the field or Carson Wentz? I'm going to take Matt Ryan every day of the week, and especially when you look at some of the teams they play, I trust him to not have kind of the collapse that they had against Jacksonville. I think Matt Ryan, I don't necessarily know if he has the slow start that Wentz did in a game like that, and I think maybe he's able to pioneer them to a win there. So you look at that on offense, and then was already a really, really strong defense last year. Underrated defense, I think. I don't think people realize how good the Colts defense is. They've got playmakers, and then you add on Stephon Gilmore, not the same player that he was when he was the defensive player of the year in 2019, but still an all-pro quarterback. You still have Kenny Moore as a slot corner, so there's 2 great defenders there. You still have Shaquille Leonard, one of the best linebackers in the entire NFL. So there's playmakers there, and I think there's a great formula for the Colts to win football games. They can play defense, and then they can keep the ball away with Jonathan Taylor, and you see so often that that's a good formula for winning football games. And even if I still think Matt Ryan can throw them enough to win the game. I like Michael Pittman Jr., and I know when you just look at the names on the roster, you think, okay, they have one playmaker, one pass catcher, and that's it. I think Alec Pierce is going to surprise some people this season. A receiver they took out of Cincinnati. He's actually a more decent weapon than I think people realize, and I believe Matt Ryan can really kind of elevate him to an NFL starting caliber receiver. When you have a good quarterback like that, the Matt Ryan is someone who can take a name like Alec Pierce, who you may not necessarily think is one of the best receivers, and elevate them into someone that is a startable player. I mean, we look at a couple of the receivers Matt Ryan has had in Atlanta the last couple of years with Julio being hurt, Calvin Ridley stepping away last year. I mean, he was playing like guys like, do we think Russell Gage is an incredible receiver? No. But Matt Ryan made him look like a pretty decent wide receiver, and then he gets rewarded with that contract in Tampa Bay. There were so many other examples of this throughout his time. Mohamed Sanu, who had great season with Taylor Gabriel. I mean, Taylor Gabriel fell off the map after the Bears season in 2018, and yet he was great for that 1 or 2 years in Atlanta with Matt Ryan. So I think he elevates Alec Pierce. So Pittman and Pierce, I think, are good enough weapons, and I think that this year, instead of getting swept by the Titans, they at least take one of those games and should be enough for them to grab a division victory, and I think get to double-digit wins. And after the disappointment that was to end the 2021 season, I think we're looking at a playoff game in Lucas Oil Stadium this year. I have the Colts making it in as a division winner after missing out last year.
Yeah, this is exactly the team that I had too, is the Indianapolis Colts. First of all, they definitely have a chip on their shoulder after missing out on the playoffs because they lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and that was quite disappointing. That was an embarrassing loss on their part. Carson Wentz looked like trash, and Chris Ballard, he's like, you know what, this is not the dude that can get us to the promised land. So obviously he goes out and trades for, what is he, 37-year-old Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is not getting any younger, okay? He wants to look. He's looking to add that Super Bowl to his resume before he hangs up the cleats. Obviously, we could talk about the whole collapse a couple of years ago, but that's over with. He's ready to. I hope he's ready to move on from that. Okay, but Matt Ryan, the last couple of years, as the Falcons continue to get worse, he keeps that team respectable. I mean, they're not like trash, but they're not a playoff team. But their defense is the main problem the last couple of seasons. And Matt Ryan is scoring touchdowns. He's throwing the football. It's not like this dude is some sort of scrub. He's still pretty good. He's still a top 15 quarterback, in my opinion. This dude could still throw the football. He could still play. He just needs the playmakers to surround him. That's all. But he does now because you got Jonathan Taylor in the backfield to help you out in the running game. So if Matt Ryan, so he doesn't have to pass the football 50 times a game, he's got Jonathan Taylor to run the football for him. So maybe he can decrease that to maybe, 35 times a game he passes the football. Obviously, you don't have T.Y. Hilton anymore, but you do have Michael Pittman. That dude is a stud. I respect him. I think he could create a lot of havoc on the offense. I will say this, though. Obviously, compared to Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan has a different style play. He's not going to put the defense in bad positions like Carson Wentz did. And obviously, he has the leadership and the presence in the locker room that he can galvanize the troops during rough and good times. So I would say the addition of Matt Ryan, that should add about, 2 to 3 extra wins compared to last season. So I expect the Indianapolis Colts to have around 10, 11 wins this season. The Tennessee Titans, I still cannot believe you said this last week. I still look at this roster and I'm like, I am counting on Ryan Tannehill to get me to the promised land. Yes, Derrick Henry is a stud. I respect him. And by the way, if you look up his high school stats, this dude is a stud in high school too. I mean, yes, Derrick Henry is that guy for running back. But if you are trying to tell me that if I have to pick between Ryan Tannehill or Matt Ryan, I am definitely picking Matt Ryan. I will say the defensive coaching staff, apparently they added John Fox, if you guys didn't know that. They lost Alan Williams and Matt Eberflus, so that may cause a little problem at the beginning of the season, but I don't think it's going to do anything major. They added, help me out here,
Kobe Dean? No. Who?
Yannick...
Ngakwe? Oh, Yannick Ngakwe.
Thank you. I can never say that name.
I was trying to say who you did it. We got there eventually.
I can never say that. I'm sorry. But obviously they're going to try to continue the turnovers like they did last year, like you said, with Shaquille Leonard. That dude is probably one of the best linebackers in the league, like you mentioned. I mean, obviously, you still got Darius Leonard. You still got DeForest Buckner. This defense is no joke. They can create havoc. Obviously, they can get a little bit better against the pass. They were very good against the run last year, but overall, they were a very good defense. And obviously, Ben, like you already touched upon it, they got a softer division. I mean, you got 2 wins already. You got 4 wins already against the Texans and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yet again, actually, they are very bad against Jacksonville in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, 3 secured wins so far. I think they will split against the Titans, so I'll say 4 for right now just to make the prediction. But they don't have a tough schedule. Yes, the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think they'll take the step forward. I don't think it's going to be anything significant. The Texans, I don't even know who's even on that team anymore besides Davis Mills and Dameon Pierce. But that's what it's going to come down to. The Indianapolis Colts should be a lock to make playoffs.
Yeah, I want to say real quick, too, this will be the best running back that Matt Ryan will be able to turn a hand the football to since 2016.
Yeah.
And that was the year he won MVP. That was the year Devonta Freeman went over 1,000 rushing yards. They had the 1-2 punch with Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman. This is a much better backfield, obviously, with Taylor and Naheem Hines, who is a very respectable back. And when Matt Ryan was able to turn a hand that football off to a decent running back, didn't have to throw every play. He had the best QB rating of his career, won MVP, 36-7 touchdown interception ratio, actually 38-7. So I expect that. I will say I'm surprised you went Colts, knowing I know you like this team. I thought you were going to go Chargers here because I think the Chargers.
100%.
You know, I had to go back and forth about that one. The Chargers will make the playoffs, in my opinion. I don't care what happens, in my opinion, but Yeah, it was a hard question. I mean, we'll talk about the Chargers.
I don't think
I got a soft spot for the Chargers. Okay.
I don't think they're as much of a lock as the Colts are because the Chargers playing such a tough division. You
They
could see
got
them
so much better though.
You could see them go 3-3 potentially in that division, and that could be enough to lose it.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's
so
true.
I think the Colts are more of a lock, although I, in my predictions, have the Chargers making the playoffs too.
Oh, so do I.
The team I'm going to pick is out of the AFC North. Both these teams actually finished 8-9 and just missed the playoffs. But I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens. I do think that this year around they have a better team. J.K. Dobbins is obviously going to just run through everyone depending on if he stays healthy. Lamar Jackson also runs as well. But this is one of the main reasons why I'm going with the Ravens. And honestly, it may shock some people, but strictly because Justin Tucker. I think they'll have a lot of games where he'll end up calling the game with either a game-winning field goal or just a game-winning kick. I think Justin Tucker is that guy, and I think that he's going to help them win a decent amount of games this year. But now, given I think they do have a very decently easy schedule. I mean, they face Jacksonville. Should be able to sweep the Browns, I'd like to think. Steelers could go maybe 1-1. Open up the season against Tennessee. They have Washington in there. New York Jets. They also see the New York Giants, Carolina, Denver. I mean, and then Atlanta. Obviously,
Denver.
yeah,
it's actually a good team now.
No, it is.
It's
Yeah,
not. It's
saying
not
that's a
Drew
bad
Lock
team.
anymore. No offense to Drew Lock. But
I'm just saying
not
that'll
because Russell
probably be
Wilson.
a close game. I think they'll be able to stay in all their games, and I just feel like Justin Tucker is going to have the foot to give them a couple of wins, and then obviously Lamar Jackson, he still has those legs to give his team a couple of wins, and then adding here's a guy that a lot of people don't really talk about, but Marcus Williams, adding him at the safety spot from New Orleans, I think that's going to be huge for them, and they still have wide receivers. Obviously, they lost Sammy Watkins, they lost Marquise Brown, which really I think kind of hurt them, but they got Rashad Bateman. Mark Andrews is going to be able to do his thing at the tight end spot. And I think they'll also use J.K. Dobbins a little bit as a wide receiver as well. I know he'll be their main running back, but I think they'll also use him as a wide receiver as well. They still have, I can't even pronounce his last name, so if you guys want to help me, you can, but Devin Duvernay?
Devin Duvernay.
Duvernay. I think he'll be good for them. Nick Boyle, and then another guy who I think that could actually have a good season for them. I know he's injured right now, but Kenyon Drake. I feel like I really like that pick. I feel like he can run the ball. I mean, obviously, we've seen it in the past. Obviously, J.K. Dobbins is going to be their main target to go to, but I still think this team could get double-digit wins and obviously push themselves in the playoffs. A lot of people say they're going to go as far as Lamar takes them, which is true, but I also think the games that Lamar cannot finish in, they have Justin Tucker to do so. So, I mean, if they're losing the game by like 2 points and they're on the 60-yard line, give it to Tucker. I mean, it's not more than likely a no-brainer, but I think that he's a great kicker. I think he's the best kicker right now in the game. He's Evan McPherson, man. That one's tough because he's really
That
good.
was just
Oh,
1 year,
Tucker's still
though.
better,
That was
yeah.
just 1 year, though.
That was just 1 year. I mean, this dude's made 63. That's the longest field goal right now. So it'll be exciting, but I do think that the Baltimore Ravens will be able to fly their way into the playoffs this year.
Baltimore has a tight end, and I don't want to buy too much into the preseason hype, but they drafted a tight end named Isaiah Likely, who is just an incredibly athletic tight end, and a couple days ago said that Likely is likely to be the third pass-catching option on this team behind Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman. And you've seen instances in the past where two tight end sets work. We saw the Patriots do it for years. So it's possible that Likely and Mark Andrews both have success. Likely's a very athletic guy, and I think he fits well with Lamar's play set. If they run two tight end sets where they can either run the ball or when they throw it, both of those guys are athletic to make catches. So I think that's something to look out for. I just think the biggest thing for the Ravens, and I have them getting one of the wild card spots too, is just can they avoid getting curb stomped by Joe Burrow twice like they did last year? I mean, last year, that Cincinnati offense could have told Baltimore what play they were about to run, and Cincinnati could have still run it anyway. Burrow threw for 400-plus yards in one game, 500-plus in the other game. So I think that's going to be the big thing if they want to grab that division is can they just avoid getting absolutely steamrolled, because that secondary against Cincinnati last year was one of the worst I've ever seen. I mean, it was like you put me and Luke out there in the secondary and try and run with Jamar Chase. No disrespect, I don't think you and I are keeping up with either of those receivers.
No.
Baltimore couldn't either. So you do look at Baltimore's going to add back Marcus Peters, and Marcus Williams is a giant addition at safety. So I think that's going to be the biggest key for the Ravens. I had them losing to Cincinnati out for the division by a game, but grabbing one of those 3 wild card spots.